One of the things we've been trying to do as part of the conclave so far is to think about challenges and problems in the context of digital public infrastructure. And the next talk is going to center around a key structure that presents something of a barrier, which is gender.
We work at the intersection of real world outcomes and embedding a lot of theory and economic, etc. And working a lot with policymakers. And one of the hotspots and one of the emerging trends in India, as everyone is here is aware, is all the digital public infrastructure. It's very interesting to see from that perspective. We have a lot of digitization in Canada. Like I see all of our information is connected and people talk about, taxes connected, etc. I see this happening in India and people raising a lot of voices. So it's interesting to see the other side of the infrastructure. One of the positive things of digitization is people had access to information. So you didn't even have to apply for a scholarship. They told you what you're eligible right away because they had the parents' income, etc. Do you view technology as gender neutral? No. So it's not about necessarily access, no. It's about access, but it's about, well, I think you're talking about availability, no. It should be, the cell phone should be available for everybody. It's gender neutral. When you go to a phone shop, it doesn't say only for men, only for women.
They say when the seat belt was designed in cars, especially the front seat, they say the way it was designed for men who were sitting as passengers and not designed for women.
The ideal is that, yes, there's been a lot of things in manufacturing. This is a good example. So as we're thinking of reimagining a way of structuring a major public infrastructure, digital public infrastructure, it's good to make sure that it's gender intentional, that it's made for everybody. The other thing is this goes way above beyond, but you want to make sure that biases that happened in a non-digital world are not translated into the digital world as well, because then you're not advancing, you're propelling things. I'm talking to a convinced crowd that DPI is one of the leading, India's role in DPI is one of the, I think, the hottest space to be. Even when I go home in Canada, you can't believe my relatives use checks still to pay the rent. So when I show everything I can do digital or transactions, etc., I think it's way ahead at leapfrog with technology enabled. I remember in 2016 when UPI came, we had done a project. I think we had done a digital lab in Jaipur where we were actually trying to digitize different segments. And one segment was a slum called Bata Basti, a little bit outside. And these are women that probably cater to a lot of the tourists and make different things like bangles and things like that. We say, okay, we will actually give them digital literacy, and the goal would be that they do a few digital transactions after a year and a half. After a year and a half, we digitized 8 women out of 800. So the journey is far, and then we understood a lot though. Well, if you digitize this payment, it will save you time from walking to somewhere to do something. But we don't know the value of that woman's walk to go to a school or college, or we don't know her community, her life, etc. So when we massively failed, but I think people, what they want first is value for them. I think that's one thing that we discovered a lot. And the value for them will differ than ours. And the value I work a lot in underserved segments, women being a majority of one. So unless you go there, understand, and we were entrepreneur a lot, okay, they're not using digital at all, but just the mere fact that they found their own use case by which they first start, by being accustomed to these technology things, that is actually itself, we thought, okay, that might be the pathway to go about it. When you look at men and women users, so UPI users, there's very different between men and women here. And then the health account is a little bit similar. So the different types of website, different types of behavior. I highly suspect that this UPI here is highly related to women's labor force participation, which is quite low in India. So if you don't have money in the bank through your wages, you're less likely to actually utilize these systems as well, like UPI, etc. 72% of women own a mobile phone, 11% lower than men. Fewer women own smartphones, have private internet access. Internet adoption is slow. 31% of women have adopted the internet, 20% lower than men. So you see already a lag in sort of like the access and use it. Lower UPI adoption among women. What can we do about it? So we have sort of like 6 areas where we work. These gender-responsive DPI structures are affordability, the challenge of accessing and using digital technology to financial constraints, cost of an actual phone handset, the cost of mobile data, the cost of voice, SMS, and the cost of maintenance. Accessibility, I think the availability of digital devices to women and girls within their household and public spaces, where women can also have access to internet but know how to use the internet for their own good. They might be understanding for entertainment, but there's very little literacy for them to be able to optimize sort of like the usage for their own good. So there's a lot of literacy to be done there. There is no privacy when you have a shared phone also. I think those who are keen to design things, the problem is not only a shared device, it is one phone number. Safety and security, I think this is massive, and it's not only for women, I think overall, but especially for women because they're always like behind. They have less access to information. There's a lot of it. My own mother lost a lot of money back in Canada because she didn't understand something digitally, and someone showed her how to transfer money through cryptocurrency. So this ideal of like quicker digital arrest, and people are, or even people in the police, I think there's so much going on here. And people might be overwhelmed because the rule of law is not necessarily here integrated. But I do think that there's one thing that needs to be done is making sure that people can identify quickly digital fraud. There's venues where people can act quickly, because this is one thing that can really harm many people into either losing their finance, losing their houses. It could be very detrimental as well. I do a lot of work with young people in colleges, for example, and see aspiration, and you see wide different norms between the boy and the girl in the household. So the girl is monitored what she's seeing, what she's saying, and who you're talking to, even worse on the phone to see. Yeah, I do, like I mentioned, I did a lot of work with young women in mental health, and we want to understand why women are very disturbed by social media. I think they tend to be more like, I would say young boys, they tend to play video games with their phone. Young women, they're on social media, and they're more affected. And I remember having a panel with this mental health organization. There was a young college woman. She said, if you do not have an Instagram identity, you don't have an identity at all, which is a very dangerous thing to do, to be, no? And she said it's very serious because people evaluate you. The ideal is that women can securely access digital platform without fear of surveillance or interference from household members, because you can easily be judged. If they can sort of like looking at like, what are you looking at, even job-wise, etc. I observed is that if women had more chances or more exposure quickly, they'll, like anybody else, no? Even ourselves, like some things I don't go on because I forget what is the password, and I said, oh, it's just a hassle. So imagine the woman who's not exposed, not used to many things. So I think there needs to be a better way.
When women workers in houses are doing micro tasks, is there a skill ceiling that they can't quite transcend? That is to say, what looks like gender intentional design in the first instance ends up reinforcing
micro task that are being given are very repetitive. I do say that I think that's also maybe something that I see that's repeating online, offline, because you see a plethora of repetitive jobs for women in India. I love studies on women in Tamil Nadu, Malipu, that jasmine flower where you do that thing. It's a very repetitive job. It reminds me of a macro task job as well.
When you try to talk about gender-responsive DPI, there is a bit of a conceptual dissonance, because when you talk about DPI, you're typically not talking about user-facing interface or the user interface part of the technology. You're talking about the behind-the-scenes digital infrastructure, building blocks, etc. So it's actually quite difficult in the DPI circles to have the gender conversation at all, because they're like, that's the solutions layer problem. In the solutions layer is, all of your, either your private sector app developers or your, whatever the localized solution that's being developed. And at that point, there are, the same exact problem exists with all types of technology solutions.
When I actually looked at who uses open data, most people are not even aware that the data is on the website, etc. And the data set that was the most used was the PIN code. That's the most downloaded data set on the open data site type of thing. So I think as a government, you have to build things for the people. given the size of India, you have to bring things for even remote communities. Tribal communities don't have access to internet, or even like I mentioned, this case of